Welcome to Pastor's Chat today. Well, we're continuing in Luke chapter 22, and we're looking at verses 13 through 25. As we said, Jesus had three unfair trials in the middle of the night before Annas, the father-in-law of the high priest, before Caiaphas the high priest at his house, and then he was sent to the Sanhedrin in the early morning hours and another unfair trial. And then after that, the Sanhedrin and the chief priest and the elders took Jesus to Pilate, probably between 6 o'clock and 9 o'clock in the morning. Now, Pilate has three unfair trials also with him. And Pilate initially, as we've already read, found him not guilty. And he heard that Herod was in town, so he sent him to Herod. Herod basically found him not guilty. Verse 15, neither did Herod find anything that was at fault in this man, as far as any Roman rules that had been broken that Jesus should be crucified for. And so in verse 13, Herod has sent Jesus back to Pilate. And verse 13, then Pilate, when he had called together the chief priests, the elders, and the people, so they come back together again. Pilate's had another opportunity to interrogate Jesus, and he said to them at this point, Pilate, you have brought this man to me as one who misleads the people. And indeed, having examined him in your presence, I have found no fault in this man concerning those things of which you accuse him. Now, that's the second time Pilate has said this. I found no fault in him, the second time. And so then he said, nor did Herod, for I have sent him back to him, and indeed nothing deserving of death has been done by him. So verse 16, I will therefore chastise him and release him, for it is necessary for him to release one at the feast. And so at this point, Pilate is trying to appease the people and saying, I find no fault, but we will go ahead and have him beaten, which meant he would be tied, Jesus would be tied to a post, his clothes would be stripped off, and the cat o' nine whips, when he had received 40 lashes that would have stripped the skin off his back. They made long furrows on my back, it talks about in the book of Psalms. Jesus was unmercifully beaten there, and thinking that this bloody Jesus would appease these people, and finally they would give up this plea to have him crucified on a cross. And so in verse 18, though, just the opposite happened. A riot almost takes place. And it says, and they all cried out at once, saying, away with this man, and release to us Barabbas, who had been thrown into prison for a certain rebellion made in the city and for murder. And so you find at this point that they did not take Pilate's answer about just beating him and then letting him go free. They said, release to us Barabbas. Barabbas, an insurrectionist, probably a Zionist, someone who had led a rebellion, also a robber, a thief. He was a very notorious prisoner, and Pilate was sure that they would not pick for him to be released. And yet they said, release to us this Barabbas. And then verse 20, Pilate therefore, wishing to release Jesus, again called out to them, but they shouted, saying, crucify him, crucify him. And Pilate answers in verse 22, then he said to them the third time, why? What evil has he done? I have found no reason for death in him. I'll therefore chastise him and let him go. And again, that's what he says. I find no fault, no reason for death in him. But they insisted, demanding with loud voices that he be crucified. And the voices of these men and of the chief priests prevailed. So Pilate gave sentence that it should be as they requested. And he released to them the one whom they requested, who for rebellion and murder had been thrown into prison, and he delivered Jesus to their will. Man, what a sad case that Pilate is in. A man of indecision. And I just can't imagine. He wanted to be popular, but he didn't want to be right. He is more concerned about his reputation than he was character. And so Pilate sentences Jesus to death because he cannot take the heat of doing what is right. and he washes his hand, as you read in the Gospel of Matthew, and said, I'm innocent of the blood of this just man. Oh, what a sad thing. Today, let's make sure that we put our faith and hope in Jesus Christ, and we don't deny him, and we don't release him. We don't release the prisoner and thieves and things like that in our lives that would dishonor the Lord. And let's live for Jesus. God bless you, and you have a wonderful, wonderful day.